to about some legislation that was proposed last session, and it was designed to incentivize designers and builders of both commercial and residential buildings to build to Energy Star standards. And Michelle is one builder who could tell you exactly how it would affect her.
Well, I disclosed I'm certainly not an expert at drafting legislation or interpreting legislation, but no one would ever accuse me of not commenting on things. So specifically, I'm talking about House Bill 201, or I'm sorry, Senate Bill 201, which is also known as House Bill 2890 on this side. So specifically, it would be an incentive to the builders to be able to produce more energy efficient homes. It would provide a tax credit of $1 per square foot. And some of the numbers that we've heard from a number of the builders in the state is that we're making the energy efficient upgrades. We're talking about $1,000, maybe up to $2,000 per home, depending on the size and the design and style of that home. So if that was the builder, if you built a home that was certified to EPA Energy Star standards, and that was a 1,000 square foot home, you would be able to apply for a tax credit in the amount of $1,000. So perhaps until the appraisal industry has been able to catch up and being able to appropriately appraise houses that have significantly more energy efficient features, or houses that are EPA Energy Star certified, this could either be used as a stopgap measure, could have a sunset built into it, that it would go away over time when the appraisal industry was able to catch up. And what I mean by that is what many of my friends at the Home Builders Association will tell you is that they're on board with building more energy efficient homes. Families want more energy efficient homes, but the challenge is that our appraisal industry in the state of West Virginia, and also in some other areas in the nation, are not willing to appraise an energy efficient home for any more than a non-energy efficient home. So you could have two homes side by side, one that would have 50% less energy cost than the other, but the appraisal industry would look at both of those houses and value them at the same. So then that next problem is when you're going to a bank to try to get a loan for that house, they're only going to loan you as much as the appraisal. So if the house costs more to make it energy efficient, and you can't get the appraisal for that amount, the family's going to have to write a check at closing for that dollar amount, or the builder's going to have to absorb that cost. So this legislation would allow for a credit to be given to the builder, so that the builder could then absorb those costs until the appraisal industry was able to catch up with that. If you're a nonprofit organization, or let's say your business doesn't really need a tax credit, and I hope that that's not the case for any of our for-profit builder friends, that they do have a tax liability, that their business is doing so well. If you don't have tax liability, there's a provision in the proposed legislation that would allow you to transfer that credit to someone else. So for us in the nonprofit world, what that would mean is that we would be able to sell that credit or trade that credit for professional in-kind services or for building materials that would further underwrite or make affordable housing more affordable for families in West Virginia. So there is a way that really could benefit everyone, and yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell. It was proposed last year. It really didn't gain much momentum, and we're hopeful that this is something that can be introduced. And I believe that's going to happen later today.
We're going to talk about strategy to get things like that done. We'll talk about it, see if it makes sense among all the stakeholders. The problem also last year was that it had a fiscal note and there was no obvious way to pay for it. Tax credits weren't a popular thing last year, and that's why we brought Rob in to talk about the Energy Expansion Fund. It's another piece of legislation that hasn't gotten much traction, but it's such a great idea, we're still trying. And there's several in this room that have introduced it to folks and talked about it for a couple of years. Rob, you have a PowerPoint very quickly. We're going to keep the panel here because we'll do a few more minutes of question and answer, wrap up this segment, and then move into the utilities conversation.
So while he's setting up, maybe I'll just add that we're going to have to find some innovative ways to be able to pay for these upgrades and just be creative. And we understand that the decisions and the choices that we're asking West Virginians to accept may be difficult ones because the economy is tight The building industry is down. This is probably not the best time to be talking about increasing the cost of what it takes to be able to build homes, but the time is certainly right as energy costs continue to go up, and we really don't want West Virginia to fall any farther behind. So what the proposed legislation I was speaking of is really just an innovative way to try to find a way to incentivize it for voluntary compliance, even if it wasn't mandated at state level.
Before you move on, I just have a question about this. What is it about West Virginia that we need this incentive? Other states have already adopted the 2009 code. What is it about West Virginia? Did other states adopt a similar incentive? Or is West Virginia just an embarrassment?
Other states do have programs like that. A comment?
Yes, it's on. Actually, when you look at the relative energy efficiency rankings of the different codes and what are called above code standards like Energy Star, you'll find that Energy Star will provide more energy efficiency than the plain vanilla 2009 IECC. So if it's in West Virginia, if it's a bit of a stretch to get the building community to move up to that standard, it'll certainly be a greater reach to get people up to Energy Star. So many jurisdictions have put in incentives to push people over the top into that direction. Now, it doesn't have to be a permanent thing. Certainly if you run these two programs in parallel with the Basic Energy Code, for which there's no incentives, it's the law, you got to do it, versus the Energy Star, with which you get the basic 09 requirements plus extra features from Energy Star. You're going to get more benefit. So it would serve as a good training ground for people in the construction industry that wanted to differentiate their product on the basis of a more energy efficient product with respect to what's being sold in the market. So these programs in tandem actually provide a more trained and educated construction industry over time, and you can phase out that Energy Star. At some point in the future, perhaps when we meet again in the future discussing the 2015 IECC or something out there, then you'll be at a point where you could actually do that because the infrastructure would have been built up a little more than it is today.
I'll touch on this. For the most part, to incentivize this, it's the difference between letting as far as the builder's point of view, if somewhere there's not a zero cost in doing this. So most of West Virginians can say, well, either I put in an air seal package or not. It's this amount of money to do it. It's a choice. And then the differences are, we're actually saying, you're going to do this. And it's not at zero cost. You do a much better than code job. And the appraisal comes in so much at the normal rate. Here's a good example. A couple years ago or a year ago, we did St. Jude Dream Home. We put in 2 Navien systems, $3,000, $3,800 systems. The upgrade versus a 80-gallon electric hot water tank was $800. That didn't pay for the product. The appraiser didn't know the cost, and it goes back to an education issue. So to incentivize this, it helps the appraisers, the lending institutions, and as well as builders to get up to speed so that you don't bankrupt an industry in the process of making this jump. It's clearly, because you'll make it up in time, but you have to pay for it today.